Now, look, Callum, I know that you've made your debut for some kind of big teams. You're South Australia, lots of, T20 teams around the world, and some of them are a big deal. But look, let's face it, this is the big one. This is your timed out debut. How are you feeling?
This is huge. I'm a little bit nervous. I was struggling through my breakfast this morning. The nerves got the better of me. Look, obviously, Lockie losing his spot on the team, that was quite controversial. The big move that Timed Out have made to leave him out of the side today and obviously recruit myself. Unfortunately for Lockie, his loss is my gain, and I'm pumped to be here. And, it's a tough world, isn't it?
It certainly is. All I can do is I can just give you 4 words of advice. They should stay with you throughout the rest of your career. Don't stuff it up. Let's get on with the show.
Let's get into it.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Timed Out with our big signing, the one and only Callum Ferguson, coming in from South Australia today. It's sunny Adelaide to join the Timed Out team. Thanks so much, Callum.
Mel, it's great to be here. Really pumped. I've been looking forward to this all week and all the way through last week, knowing there was a big test match on over the weekend and there was going to be plenty to talk about. But obviously, there's always a few nerves around when you look at a debut for any team. And this is a big one in the opening partnership with Melinda Farrell.
Yeah, well, it's a lot of people say that it's obviously quite a big deal to work with me, and I can understand that. But look, don't worry, we've got a very lovely audience on this show who are always very welcoming to everyone and very supportive. So if you're watching out there, make sure you give Callum some love, because that's what we're all about on this show. Huge. Oh, anytime. Huge week in Test cricket, certainly with a brilliant Test, and with India just doing what they did in Australia. We were so used to doing that, and then pulling off an incredible away win. So let's bring up our first topic. We've got Muku, our producer, is on the timer. We're going to have 3 minutes to discuss this, but something tells me we might have a couple of other things to say. India leave England battered and bruised, physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. What really stood out for you about this Test match, Callum?
Oh, look, there are a number of things, and what a Test match it was. So entertaining all the way through. From the minute that England won the toss and elected to bowl, that's always a controversial one, but certainly their bowlers gave them every chance. And look, I think the effort from the Indian bowlers in both innings, really. I mean, the English had a fantastic opportunity on a great batting pitch in the second innings of the game, in their first innings, and probably just didn't capitalise that. A lot of guys get a start and not go on and post that match-winning innings. And someone who didn't miss the opportunity was Rohit Sharma in the second innings for India in the third innings of the game. He just took the ball by the horns and ran away with the game. And, more often than not, a total over 300 in the fourth innings of a Test match is going to be more than enough. And whilst England got off to a good start, unfortunately, things can happen very, very quickly at the back end of a Test match, one way or the other. And unless someone gets 100 in a big run chase like that, inevitably you're going to fall short. But Rohit Sharma was the one, wasn't he, in that third innings? He took the game away from England. And unfortunately for the English side, they weren't able to hold up to, what was a fantastic bowling performance from the Indian side. They just keep coming at you, the Indian bowling attack, and, led in the field by Virat Kohli, who just has such a fantastic presence out there, brings great energy and really, really drives the bus for the Indians out there. And the bowlers jump right in behind, and it was just a really well-rounded performance from the Indians, who, obviously on the back foot a little bit, losing the toss and being knocked over early in that first innings. They showed a lot of character in that second innings. I think they were 99 behind on the first innings when the openers walked to the crease, and they just didn't show any nerves whatsoever. They just walked out there, chipped away at that lead, and look what they put on the board. It was a fantastic performance.
I mean, a couple of things there. Virat Kohli received a lot of criticism for not playing Ravichandran Ashwin, and in the end, he did have Jadeja bowling into the rough, did take a very good wicket. The seamers really came good in that fourth innings. So do you reckon that we'll see Ashwin play in the fifth test? This is so hard. It seems so wrong to me every time I see him not in a team. But you can understand, I guess, Virat's reasons, and they were vindicated in the end, weren't they? They won.
Yeah, well, that's right. I mean, and it's really, really hard to change a winning team, and particularly when it was such a convincing win, really. I mean, there were moments where it seemed like England had the upper hand, but the way the Indians attack moments where their backs are up against the wall is one of the most impressive things about this team, I think. I mean, whilst they play fantastic cricket when they get ahead, when their backs are against the wall, they do it so calmly and they just chip away, and look what they did. They just turned it around and did it beautifully.
You timed that answer perfectly as well. I'm waiting for the ducks. Wait, there it is. There it is. Not a sound.
To that timer.
Not a sound that I'm sure you would have enjoyed at any time throughout your career. A couple of people saying, welcoming you here. We have Vinay Venkatesh who says, Namaste, Callum.
Namaste.
Very, very nice.
Thank
Namaste.
You,
yeah, Priyanshu Singh says hello to Callum as well. So lovely to see all of you guys in here, and thanks for joining us, and thanks for giving Callum the love. Don't forget, sometimes I need some love as well. Just saying, not that I'm needy or anything. So if you have any comments that you'd like, questions about that test match or something else that's been happening, please feel free to drop it into the chat box there, and we'll try and get to that as well, because there's certainly been plenty to talk about this week. Now, our second timed out topic, before we might head back to a couple of other things. Wow, things have been really happening in Pakistan. When are they not happening? I love Pakistan cricket. So much about Pakistan cricket. They're such a brilliant team to cover. There's just so much exciting, but we see this happen periodically, that things don't tend to sort of finish with a coaching tenure or player or captain tenure. It never seems to be a smooth progression. It's just like everything happens all at once. So Ramiz Raja has come in. Now they've announced their squad for the T20 World Cup. And then all of a sudden, straight after that, Misbah al-Haq and Waqar Younis have stepped down. So where that all fits together, what's happening behind the scenes, we don't know. But it's something that we've seen before. And the thing is, when this happens with Pakistan cricket, and you think, they've gone from number 1 in the world to number 6 or 7. They would have been, one of the favourites for the World Cup last year in Australia, for sure. They were in brilliant form. And now they seem to have used about 5,768 players in the side. Misbah seems to have been a bit not quite sure what he's wanted to do with the T20 side. That's probably the time they're most dangerous. They're probably going to win the T20 World Cup now.
I mean, they are a fantastically entertaining team. There's no doubt about it in all three formats. One thing I will say, though, is that this is an extremely talented group of cricketers. And this is a side, if they do get some momentum and they get their tails up, they're going to take some serious stopping. Now, I wonder whether perhaps just being a little bit down on form leading into the tournament makes them more dangerous. A bit like that Indian side I mentioned before. They've probably got a different method of fighting out of their backs against the wall scenario. They tend to come out swinging really, really hard. And if they connect with a few, the momentum that the Pakistan cricket team can produce can be unstoppable at times. We've seen that in big tournaments and in some series against some very, very good sides over the years. So like we just mentioned, and you mentioned before, they were number 1 in the world not that long ago. I don't think they're a side that has dropped off that far. Yes, their form's not great at the moment, potentially. However, that is an enormously talented lineup. And if they get some momentum up, they could take some beating. But it is, I think, a really unsteadying little situation that they've got going with their support staff at the moment. However, sometimes when we see new coaching staff come into teams, we see a real spike in performance straight off the bat. Maybe that spike is going to happen in this World Cup. I hope so, because the damage and the chaos that they can cause as a side can be enormously entertaining and could really light up the World Cup to come.
Well, yeah, I remember the 2017 Champions Trophy. I was lucky enough to be there for it, and that was absolutely phenomenal. And it's just one of those things I would never ever write them off in any tournament after that. And particularly ICC tournaments, they get into the groove at some point. You never know when it's going to happen, if it's going to happen, but if they do get into the groove at a certain point, you know, it's just phenomenal how that can go. And you're right, so many times you see that across sport, not just cricket, but in sport in general, a change in management, and then all of a sudden, I don't know, the players lift, they find something, everyone's sort of, you know, part of a new holiday sort of group or something like that. So you're right, you might be right, they might win.
Who knows?
Who knows?
Deep into the tournament.
Yeah, they certainly can. Lots of love coming in for you, which is really good. And a little. Well, there's a little comment here, little question. Let's bring in from Diraj Ragtar, who says, "Hi, Callum and Mel. Ross Taylor not being part of New Zealand T20. Your thoughts, please." That is an interesting one, I guess. The looking to the future thing, as opposed to someone who's been a massive part of, well, every format for New Zealand.
Yeah, he has been. And you know, what they lose from the player himself is huge from a skill set, but also his leadership around the group will certainly require some players to step up. There's no doubt about it. You know, in the field, the experience, being able to communicate with younger players and keep everyone calm. I always felt playing against Ross that he was a really calming influence on the team you were playing against. You know, whether you had the opposition a few down early and Ross came to the wicket, or watching him on TV in Test cricket and watching him dig New Zealand out of difficult situations. Someone's going to need to step up into that role. They do have a huge number of classy middle order players that I think have the ability to step up, but it's probably the leadership around the dressing room that isn't as easy to cover sometimes, especially when you've got the depth that the New Zealand cricket team's got at the moment. It's, I think, more so the leadership that's going to have to that gap's going to have to be bridged by probably not one, but a number of players.
Yeah, he's one of my favorite players in the world. I absolutely love Ross Taylor, and there is something very, very calm about him. Now, I am UV21 says, prediction about the next match, please. Now, I'm not one for predictions because I figure that they're meaningless. Because, I mean, really, we can say India's going to win, England's going to win, it's going to be a draw, it's going to be a washout. I don't know, but there'll be an attack of dinosaurs that wipe out the stadium, and we can't say any of that. But what I do think is going to be hard for England is physically backing up from that, particularly James Anderson and Ollie Robinson, when Joe Root, with reasons known only to him, not giving the ball to Moeen Ali to bowl at one point, Craig Overton perhaps not being so reliable in that final innings. Just the backing up on those bowlers, and no Jofra Archer, no Stuart Broad. They'll be really hoping that Mark Wood is back up to speed, because it's looking pretty difficult for them now, particularly with the bowlers, isn't it?
Yeah, there's no doubt their depth is being tested right now. They've been able to rely so heavily on Broad and Anderson in English conditions for well over a decade now. But what they are having to do now is really stretch deep. You know, a couple of their second stringers, or the guys that fall in behind Broad and Anderson, are now starting to get a few niggles as well. What they do have is some young talent, though, and Ollie Robinson has come in and had an impact. There's no doubt about it. But certainly it's going to be something that he hasn't really experienced before. So the reliance on Anderson is still going to be there. Wood a little bit sore. Overton, how's he looking after that one on the elbow back onto the stumps or the arm?
Yeah, that looked bad.
There's going to be some challenges for this English side. And notwithstanding all of that, they've then got to bounce back from the mental challenge that they faced in that last test, face some of those demons, and then front up again on day one, ready to go. So it's going to take a lot to turn this series around for England now. It's a huge challenge. I'm leaning towards India. I think that they've got the momentum now, and they're a side that when they get some momentum can be really hard to stop.
Oh, Callum, we'll have to have a discussion about my theory that momentum doesn't exist.
Don't worry about that. Shane Bond and I used to fight over this tooth and nail in the Thunder dressing rooms. He didn't believe in it either, and I'm a firm believer there's momentum in the game.
Look, I love this. This is what it's about. See, it's all right to have different opinions. I am not a big momentum. Look, the only thing that England, I guess, can look to as well is that you wouldn't have given them much chance to come back from the shellacking that they had earlier in the series as well. But it does tend to rely very much on an individual performance, like a Joe Root. They're heavily dependent on him with the batting, and that they had some good bowling performances, and the bowlers look really, really tired. Okay, let's bring up our next topic of the day, and that is we'll just get rid of that. There we are. Uncertainty surrounds Australian men's domestic season. It was supposed to start this Saturday for anyone tuning in with the Marsh Cup. It was supposed to be, I think, New South Wales playing in Perth. But for anyone who doesn't know, all the borders in Australia are shut. It's very difficult for anyone to get anywhere right now. You need all sorts of exemptions and quarantining and everything else. So it's not going to happen the way we thought it was going to happen. The board met last Friday, and we haven't had any official news come out as yet that I've seen. But what are you hearing, Callum?
I've done a little bit of digging, and I've jumped on the grapevine around South Australian cricket here, just trying to get a bit of a gauge as to what it looks like. Is there a chance that we're going to get the Marsh Cup in before the Big Bash, or is it more likely after, which was what we were hearing probably 3-4 weeks ago, and that the Shield season, the Sheffield Shield, is actually going to start this month. However, the latest I'm hearing, Mel, is that we're going to see a start to the Marsh Cup before the end of this month. In fact, in Adelaide, South Australia versus WA on the 22nd of September. Now, obviously, we haven't seen any official statements or media releases, but that's what I'm hearing right now. So watch this space. It could be coming at us a lot quicker and a lot sooner than we thought.
Oh, ear to the ground. I love it. Breaking gossip. Yes. I'm timed out.
Well, we want to know. We want to be in the know, don't we? We want to get ourselves prepared. Start putting our teams together. Who we think are going to be in the starting lineups, and it's right upon us this season. It's going to come around really, really quickly.
Well, it is. And I mean, I know Cricket Australia were desperate to avoid the whole hub situation that they had last year where, the Sheffield Shield obviously being played down there in Adelaide. What do you think was so difficult about that? Can you give us an insight into why that they might be so determined to avoid that? Because that basically would be the easiest way to guarantee the games, have them all in one state. Everyone just stays there, just do them all. You're not having to cross any borders.
Yeah, look, I think some of the difficulties is it's so different from what everyone's used to. And no doubt there's a lot of people around the world that are experiencing lockdowns. And certainly in Australia on the eastern seaboard, we're seeing New South Wales and Victoria, the populations there being locked down and stuck in their own room, their own homes for lengthy periods. Not everyone's got a backyard, and you're allowed to get out for an hour of exercise, I believe, a day. But with the cricketing hubs, there's a little bit more freedom, but the ability to be able to spend any time with family or friends is just about zero. It becomes really, really difficult. Some people are fortunate to be able to take time off work and perhaps jump into a hub with their partners, so the cricketers can bring their family into the hub, but there's only on certain periods of the tournament, which are pretty short, that ability is there. So Look, it's probably just that it's so hard to spend time with family and friends, and you're stuck in hotel rooms with the same people day in, day out. That can be really difficult. But at the same time, I'm going to ignore the quacking just for a second, just to say that it's something that Cricket Australia are trying to avoid for a reason, and that's the mental well-being of the players. They're in a highly stressful scenario, day in, day out, having their performances reviewed day in, day out by the media, and not having the support networks around them can be really tough.
Yeah, absolutely. I can just imagine it. I'm thinking that the only way I'll be able to do this whole summer is by going into some sort of biosecure bubble. I haven't had to do it yet. I know you have. So the thought of it, just even thinking about it, stresses me out. But that's some exciting news there. So we'll keep an eye out for anything official. But just remember, you heard it here first on Timed Out.
Yes, that's right. Timed Out.
Good old Sleuth Ferguson we have here on the show. Just a comment coming into a question actually from Shastri Bhargav. He says, "Hi, do you think Tanveer Sangha should have been a part of reserves for the Australian T20 squad, given the World Cup is in the UAE?" It's a good question there from you, Shastri, and I sort of really wanted to see him get a bit more of an opportunity to play for Australia. He sort of seems to have been there on a whole heap of tours and never gets to play. How close do you reckon he would have been to that?
Yeah, look, unfortunately, on the back of not playing any of the series leading in, I didn't really think he was much of a chance, unfortunately. I would have loved to, like you, Melinda, have seen him receive an opportunity, as far back as just post the Big Bash, I reckon, when there was a couple of series straight after the Big Bash where there was a couple of opportunities, I thought. But one thing is for sure, Australia is certainly well served by the spinners in that squad and have been over the last few months. We've seen some fantastic performances from Adam Zampa, who I think's led that spin attack for a long, long time, really, really well. Ashton Agar's obviously been one guy who's really improved in the last few years and taken his international cricket to another level. We saw Mitch Schwepson get the opportunity probably ahead of Tanveer Sangha, and that was probably where the battle was lost for Tanveer. He probably needed to get that opportunity in front of Mitchell, and unfortunately that didn't happen for Tanveer. But he's got a huge future. I was very fortunate to captain him in the Big Bash in his first season, and I thought he was absolutely fantastic. He was willing to go to a few game plans that would have been very unusual for him and things that he wouldn't have tried previously on his way through the system as a young player. But his ability to take on the best and keep his cool and get into the contest and compete was so good for a young player, and made me enormously excited for his future and his international future, I think, in the not too distant future, hopefully. But I'd love to see him playing some state cricket for New South Wales and in both formats this year. I think that's the next step for him in his chase for a baggy green in the long run.
Yeah, well, it's certainly an exciting prospect. I did notice there that something that cracks me up. Do you have a problem saying Mitchell Schwepson because you got to say Schwepson because of Schweppes, the soft drink? I do it every time.
Exactly right. Yeah, I just did it then, didn't I?
I'm so glad it's not just me. I always say Schwepson.
The first guy was always Schwepson.
Yes, every single time. I'm so glad it's not just me, because that happens to me every time I say his name. So thank you. You've just made me feel a lot better. Well, that is Timed Out for this week. What a sterling debut. It was a bat-raising debut there from Callum Ferguson. Make sure you give him a follow on Twitter if you're not already. Why wouldn't you be? He's got a lot more followers than me. But do let us know any thoughts you have. He's been so good that I've decided, yes, he's back. I'm recalling you for next week, Callum. You've got the job. I reckon you can nail this down. Actually, make this spot your own.
That's the plan. Don't worry about that. Take your opportunities.
Absolutely, and run with it. So thanks to all of you. Make sure that you check out Sporting News Australia for all the latest cricket news and information and other sports on there as well. And until next time, enjoy the cricket. We'll see you after the next test.
See you, everyone.